This is the I'm Possible Project show, where we interview real people who have achieved incredible feats in the face of overwhelming odds, showing that impossible is just a state of mind and that anything is possible. I'm your host, Joshua Rivedal. Today, in episode 37, Life of Hope, I talk to Deeatra K. Let's jump right in.
Today, I'm interviewing a new friend of mine who is quite a pistol, if I may say so, at least in the world of suicide prevention and mental health. Deeatra K. She is an award-winning suicide awareness and prevention advocate, public speaker, and founder of Life of Hope, an organization responsible for a comprehensive approach to the prevention of suicide attempt and death. She reaches audiences with her story of hidden secrets, cycles of chronic major depression and anxiety, a near-fatal suicide attempt, and an unexpected twist toward acceptance, healing, and hope for others. Today, Deeatra dedicates her life to raising awareness, providing education, and supporting others. It is through her own life journey that her story connects with her audience in highly personal and inspiring ways, and I am inspired by Deeatra. Deeatra, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure.
So, Deeatra, that was bio that I read from our book, the book that you're in. You are one of our 50 authors in our volume 2 of the I'm Possible Project, which is coming out in August of 2017. And so I'm glad that we get to do that together. But that is a bio that doesn't do you nearly enough justice. And so I would love it if you could give us a little background on your life, where you've been, where you're going, the Deeatra K experience.
Oh, thank you, Josh. So for some of your listeners, they'll be able to identify with being a child of the 70s and 80s. For those who came before, they experienced it maybe as adults, and for those who came after, they just need to connect with one of us older, more seasoned adults to appreciate what life was like during maybe just a little bit simpler time, and really a time when the topic of suicide or mental illness were closeted. I know that feels like it still is even yet today, but if we can imagine that it was even more so just a few short decades ago. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, really we experienced within our household the concept of what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. I kind of laugh at the whole campaign that was done by Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, because I'm pretty sure that they stole that from my childhood and I'm waiting for the royalties now. But what I didn't realize growing up was that many risk factors associated with suicide ideation were the daily living environment that we experienced. And it really led to a lot of the way that my brain was functioning, processing the world around me, how I felt about it, how I viewed myself in it. And by the time that I was in my very early 20s, I was moving across the country from the state of Idaho to the state of Wisconsin simply to get away from a past that I felt like it was just always there, and it was something that held steadfast to keeping me from being able to move forward. What was really happening is that I had a history of untreated mental illness and unresolved challenges that were made only worse by unhealthy coping skills. And so coming to the state of Wisconsin, where I thought I would find this whole new beginning, what I didn't realize at the time that got faced with pretty abruptly was that no matter where I was always there. And so by the time that I, was just a few years later, I was already the mother of 2. I was heading into a second divorce. I was jobless, facing homelessness, grieving the loss of my grandfather who had just recently passed. I was estranged from my family of origin, and here we are in 2001, and nothing makes sense. And I feel like the greatest challenge to my children's lives, the greatest pain and setback and holdback that they will ever experience is the mother that brought them into the world. And knowing in my mind that I would only cause greater pain to them by being in their life, I attempted to end my life. And at the time, I truly just didn't understand what that psychological pain really was. Very fortunately, I survived that attempt, and it became the first step toward my healing. What I've learned since then, primarily because a friend of mine died just 3 years ago by suicide, and really awoken a part of me to understanding this topic, wanting to understand it, because I didn't even, 13 plus years later, I still didn't understand what landed me in an emergency room close to losing what has now been 16 of the best years of my life. Wanting to understand all of those why questions was that my best kept secret was really the one that needed to be shared the most. And it took me back to realizing not only had I had previous attempts, but I had also had a number of people who had asked me about scars that still remain from my survived suicide attempt. And I had become so good at hiding this deep, dark secret from the world around me that I was really becoming an expert at hiding it from myself until Kirk passed, and I realized that I couldn't. I could no longer sit in silence, and I could no longer be blind to the risk factors, the behaviors, the intervention options that are all associated with suicide, and that ultimately would be the key to not only my survival, but being able to thrive and help others beyond that pain. And so I wrote a proposal for changing the topic of suicide in my local community. And through seeking to fill gaps within our healthcare system and the recovery system, LiFE of Hope, a nonprofit organization that I founded, was launched in 2015. And we're now halfway through our third year, which is really exciting. We've helped and come in contact with at least 1,500 individuals from our local and surrounding area, and we continue to grow our program offerings and make a difference in the lives of many as they continue to make a huge difference in my life and those who serve our mission. So that's my background, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
And I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you're with us. Those attempts were attempts, and the story you shared of those 1,500 locals, and not just locals, because I know you're sort of spreading out and mushrooming outward, and hopefully the show will allow people to learn more and to hear more inspiring. We'll be inspired by who you are and what you've been through and how you've come through on the other side. A couple of comments.
Josh, and I did want to so LiFE of Hope really is where we've made those connections with individuals through our awareness, education, and support pillars of influence that we really focus on through that filling the gaps within our healthcare and recovery systems here in our local community. As a speaker, as a public speaker on the topics of mental wellness and suicide prevention, that commitment to community reaches very far and wide, nationwide, and the audiences are very, very diverse, and I'm very blessed to be able to share my story and inspire others to find their voice and to just simply look at these topics differently. Knowledge is power, and the more that we become aware and understanding of difficult topics, the more we feel empowered to change the course of history, and in the case of suicide specifically, save lives.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious a little bit more about your background. I want to dig a little deeper so we can understand a little better why you're doing what you do and just how you got where you are. You hit rock bottom at one point, and now you've got this life of hope, and so there's some 15, 16-year gap in between. How did you know when you hit rock bottom? I'm kind of putting those words in your mouth, so if you want to rephrase when you answer, please do. At what point did you realize things need to change, things could possibly get better, and how did you work through that? Was there a support system? Was there God? Was there some guru shaman that came to you in a dream? I'm just curious as to where rock bottom was and how the rebounding process came about, if I may.
Oh, that's such a great question. I think that there's been a couple of significant events over the last 16 plus years. First of all, that hitting rock bottom, as you have referred to it, and I think that that's a fair enough analogy, happened literally for me on an emergency room table, realizing at the time that the medical staff became fully aware of the extent of injury to my body. There was this shift in the room. The sense of urgency was something that I've never experienced since, and I truly pray that those who suffer any form of injury, physical or mental, never have to know what that moment feels like. But for me, it was a very specific awareness of my mortality and recognition that I was going to die. There was the reality that the urgency was such that really my life laid in the hands of those medical professionals and whatever God was to do with it. And my distinct thought right in the moment was, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I don't want to die. But realizing at that point that not only did my physical body not have the ability to cooperate and to support the necessary medical attention, but that in that moment I was hopeless, or not hopeless so much, but I was helpless to be able to make any other decision beyond the one that I had made when I began taking action to leave my life behind. And so I think that was a significant turning point, wanting to live so significantly that there was nothing else that mattered. And when I talk about the concept of living, I'm not talking about breathing or having a pulse, though we could recognize that those are certainly symbols of life. I wanted to live in the means of feeling joy, in feeling connected and feeling a sense of purpose and belonging. And I didn't know, first of all, if I would get that chance, and secondly, how that could ever be possible. But on the other side of that emergency room, as I did begin to heal and have choices that I was willing to embrace, I made the choice to live. And I think that that's an invaluable, way of looking at the topic of suicide, is that there has to be a choice made to live. And so it started with the doctor's orders for me to be able to leave the mental health facility that I was eventually placed in to enter into psychotherapy, talk therapy, to seek medications that could help me with my mental health stability. And I had been in and out of counseling since I was 6 years old. This truly was the first time that I went in wanting to be as transparent as I possibly could. And it meant doing a lot of really hard work. I actually did very well with those treatments and a lot of commitment. I began to build a social support system around myself because I had pushed everybody away. Believing that I was alone, it made it really easy for me to push people away until it was a self-prophecy that I created, a state of being alone. I surrounded myself by people that added joy to my life and that I could slowly begin to feel like I was adding joy to theirs. Well, the medication concept, I was very good at playing Dr. D and starting one medication or a series of medications, and then I would quit the medication because, of course, I was feeling better, and nobody wants to be on medication because that's only for crazy people, and I'm not crazy, so I would stop taking it. I would spiral back downward, go to a different doctor, tell my story, eventually get on new medications. That took me a little bit longer to come to the acceptance that my mental illness is a chronic mental illness. It is not a situational mental illness, and that the difference between treated and untreated mental illness makes all the difference in the world, that my mental illness hasn't changed, but my way of living with it has. And so life has been really, really good. And then in June of 2014, I received communication that a friend of mine had passed away by suicide. And I would say that is probably the second most significant shifting point that's taken place. When he passed away, I became so keenly aware of not understanding how he had passed away that I was also faced with the idea of not really understanding how I had gotten there to begin with, because nobody had ever talked to me about risk factors and behaviors and intervention options. I had just gone through talk therapy. Nobody had ever talked to me about how my brain was functioning, why it was doing what it was at the time, and what I needed to do to reprogram. I just did talk therapy, and I learned those things without really understanding why and how, and so I think it took longer than maybe what it even had to have. And so in wanting to have those answers, to find peace in Kirk's passing as much as to find peace and acceptance and forgiveness of myself, I began to look for ways that I could help others, and that's really what brought Life of Hope forward. That's what created this mission that I now am on. I've dissolved my business that I had for 10 years, helping businesses, corporate businesses, turn around their marketing, their sales, and their human potential to maximize their profitability. And now I help the people who work within those businesses find their purpose and become the very best versions of themselves, which, of course, not only helps them, but it helps their friends, their family, their neighbors, the companies they work for, our communities far and wide. So very, very different career, but I just feel like everything I'd ever done in my career was ultimately leading me to what I'm doing today, and I feel incredibly blessed.
You are, and you're a blessing, too, because of what you've been through and the fact that you're turning it on its ear when I think lots of people would shut down and be quiet about it. You're like raising your hand like, oh, I'm here, and I got something to share you, and I think this will maybe help you feel better. And that's kind of when we make it through those difficult situations, I can only really speak for myself, but I don't want to put these words in anyone else's mouth either. But when I feel like since I've been through some similar experiences, I've lost a parent to suicide. I've nearly made an attempt. I've been suicidal about 7 years ago, 2011, 6 years ago. And when you go through that and you find the capacity to live and to come out and not just live and survive, but thrive, there's almost a debt, a healthy debt to say, I owe it to help other people who seemingly can't find the capacity to live, to thrive. I owe it to them and to almost to the universe that's what we do. We help. We have a template. It's not a complete roadmap, but it's a template to show people this is what I did, and some of this was going to work for you, and some of it won't. And you find, and you use this template to create your own roadmap, but it's possible to live and not just to live and survive, but thrive. And that's what you're doing. And it's incredible. I have a question. You mentioned purpose. You mentioned connecting to joy and hope and purpose. What is that connection for you? Because I know what mine is. I know what's kept me alive and beyond that and the many things that I've cultivated in the years I was suicidal. In the beginning, all it was like two or three things. It was the gratitude that I had a place to stay and a job, just some menial job, but it was a job that put food in my mouth. And then the little components of volunteering when I could, when I had the capacity and I wasn't completely catatonic or sick or whatever, or consumed by a depressive episode, holding the door open for this elderly lady in the building. And then if the next day, if I could, do it twice because I know she entered and exited or whatever, I would do that. So there was a little sense of purpose there. And then it's mushroomed into many, many different things as, finding purpose and connecting to hope and joy. How did all that stuff, that connection, how did that look in the very beginning of you sort of rebounding and building your life back up? And what has it grown into if it looks any different than it did before? How do you connect to that joy and hope and purpose?
Well, I have to begin first by just saying that I often wake up feeling like I'm on borrowed time. I call the last 16 and a half years of my life my bonus years. And I think any time that you're given a second chance, and I believe that we're all worth every second chance we've ever been given. And thank goodness we get multiple second chances, because sometimes we're too blind to even see that they were right there in front of us and we walk past them. Sometimes we're given that second chance. We have the best intention that, hindsight's 20/20, and we see that we completely flubbed it up. And then there are the times when the second chance is there. We grab hold and we make the very most of what it's offered to us, and we get it right, and we celebrate those moments. I'm a big believer that I've grown far more from the challenges that I faced than the successes I've had. But yeah, don't get me wrong, I know how to celebrate when I do something right. And to really embrace that. I think that the biggest thing about purpose, about, as you said, that whole concept of being of service to others, I call it hope in action. You can always hope that something's going to get better, but hope in action means that you're actually doing something to make it better. And in that, we find purpose, or maybe purpose finds us. But it takes the action. And the very first action that I encourage as a speaker, as an individual who might be talking to somebody for the first time who's really struggling, whether it be the individual who's struggling with suicide ideation, or it's a friend or family member of somebody who is, or someone who's not understanding why this mental illness that they're dealing with has such a strong grip on them, and that they feel like they're just drowning and they don't feel comfortable in their own skin. And how do I wake up in the morning and put my foot on the ground and do this day? The very first thing that's required is focusing on oneself, because in order for us to be that hope in action, to give to one another, we must first be the very best version of ourselves. And, every day I am not the best version of myself. I'm far from it. But my goal is that every day I have the potential and I get to make the choice to first be good to me and then share that goodness with others. And if I make a mistake, own it. Don't blame anybody else. I am not the person that I am today because of my childhood. I'm not the person that I am today because somebody did me wrong. I didn't end up on an emergency table clinging on to life because of what everybody else did to me, and I can't get any better, and I just got, I pulled the short stick. Doing that only defers the pain until later, when you finally have to recognize that through it all, you were right there. The people change, the locations change, the circumstances change, that you're there, which means there's one common denominator. For me, that acceptance was paramount to healing, to connecting with a sense of purpose, whether it was reconnecting with a family member, whether it was starting my business and having the joy that I had in working with different companies and with my staff who became like family, whether it was starting Life of Hope and all of the amazing stories that I've had the joy of not only hearing but now being a part of, so many life journeys. It's so important that we recognize our part and that we own it. We celebrate the good and the bad, but that we don't defer blame, because in nearly every circumstance, it's not where you've been or what's happened to you. It's what we choose to do with it and how we choose to live on the upside of our adversity that really defines us. So I don't know if that answers your question, but my purpose has changed over and over and over again during the last 16 years. But every single step has led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I don't think that I truly don't believe that I had to have had a significant suicide attempt for me to be the woman that I am today. What I needed was the resources, the tools, so that I could become the woman I am today. And that's what I hope this book that we've been working on together with so many other inspirations is an illustration to those who are very fortunate to read it, that I'm possible and that each of us can own that. So I thank you so much for having had an opportunity to be a part of it, and I hope that the readers will share it with others and see a part of themselves reflected and know that they're worth every second chance they've ever had because they are possible.
Wonderful words. You did answer my question, and this is why you're part of the book, because not only do you have a story to tell, you tell it well, and if you wanted to, you could, at least in the context of the story that you wrote, you could certainly, pull your hammer out and sort of hit your message over people's heads. But you didn't do that, and you didn't tell people how to think or how to feel, but you're presenting people with options and presenting people with opportunities that they can find within themselves. Because when we tell people about you should do this or you should do that or take a look at this in your life, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't come from them. All of us have the answers inside to be our best selves, but what we do need is somebody there to facilitate and help big thinking and to help us and support us and nurture us to say, I believe in you. And it sounds to me like you've had a lot of that experience in the past 16 years where you've cultivated the thought process of, I'm going to own my experiences, but I need help. And that's something that our folks out there need to know, on top of all the wonderful words that you just spoke, is that we need to ask for it, even if it feels funny, even if it feels weird, even if it feels like the wrong person.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, because when I was suicidal, the first person I reached out to was my mother, and we hadn't really talked in like 6 months or whatever, and we were just going through a terrible time, and she was the last person I wanted to talk to, but I just didn't know where else to go, and I took a huge risk, and at first it very much seemed like a risk because she was saying things that are counterintuitive to what it means to help somebody. And then after she got off her high horse and I helped her dismount because I was going to hang up, she completely switched gears and became my mom again and became a friend and helped. And so I say that because sometimes we might reach out to somebody, or we might be tempted to reach out to somebody who we know or who we think might not want to help or might not be a help. And that it could be a huge risk, but your life is worth that risk. And I will say that if that person turns out not to be the right person, there is somebody and somebody's out there who, even if you haven't met them yet, they exist, who want to help you and who care for you. And so we need to get this idea out of our head that we're not worth asking for help, or it's going to make us look like X, Y, or Z. Nothing worse can happen, other than losing your life, but nothing worse could happen by asking for help. We need help. All of us need help. And you've reached out, I've reached out. And so we need to continue to cultivate that idea. But we are all possible, and we all have a story. We all have something to give and to offer, whether that's to one person or a million. We're not all public speakers, but you certainly figured out a way to cultivate that. and to share your story and your message of hope and your life of hope, not just the foundation you created, but you have a life of hope, and you are a testament to that. And so not everybody's a public speaker, but we can share our story through interpretive dance, through journaling, through blogging, through vlogging. There's so many different ways, and it doesn't have to be public. It's dipping your toes in the water of therapy, of peer counseling. There's so many different ways, but we need to be vocal. We need to be vocal, like Deeatra, but not the same. We need to find the ways that feel good to us, feel safe to us. So thanks for being that example. And many people, I go for this question because the show was about overcoming obstacles, taking impossible to impossible, turning lemons into lemonade, and so. But I don't really need to ask the question about how this obstacle and this of suicidality, suicide ideation, even attempting something that's some of the worst experiences a person can have, and some might even call them a detriment to that person, even if they survive. There's a lot of silence and shame and secrecy, as you've said, alluded to, but also been explicit about. You figured out a way to turn this obstacle and this liability into an asset, in the sense that you're sharing your story. You're no longer being secretive about what you've been through. You've created a foundation that's based on averting suicide ideation and suicide attempts, and you flipped your business on its head and said, I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to kind of row away from shore without another shoreline in sight, and we're going to take this and do what we can do with it, and it's scary, and I dissolved my business, but I'm going to help those people that I help, but help them in a different way. So you've totally made lemons into lemon meringue pie and a lemon popsicle and lemon chicken and, I don't know, lemon candy, if anyone likes that.
There's a quote I once saw. It says, when you're handed lemons, turn it into grape juice and watch everybody wonder how you did it. And I think I'm probably living. I know I didn't quote it exact as I once read it, but I think I'm living that metaphor every day right now. Learning as I go how to develop an organization that there is. I was talking to, and for any of our listeners that aren't familiar with his work, I was talking to Dr. Thomas Joyner, who's really one of the founding fathers of the study on suicidology, and I was saying, you know about our program, all the various programs that we offer. Our team has been trying to find any other organization across the country that's doing something similar, very comprehensive, fill the gap, provide, awareness, education, support. We can't find anybody. We can't find any entities. Where are we not looking? What is the unturned rock? And he said, there are none. Life of Hope. Life of Hope is so unique. And this grassroots concept that you've started is really the future of suicide prevention. And I remember thinking how flattering that was, how honored I was that Dr. Joyner would share that perspective. And then as quickly as I could think that, getting that moment of fear that just almost takes your breath away, going, oh my gosh, we're really on our own. So, I think that this has been one of the most joyous experiences of my entire life. And I'm so proud, the work that we do and the people that we have an opportunity to impact. When I'm out speaking, the courage that comes, the strength that comes from those who stay late and share their story with me. It's a gift. I went for 13 and a half years, and there would have been nothing anybody could have done to have gotten me to break that silence. If you didn't absolutely have to know about the darkest event of my life when I nearly lost it, there's no way you did know. In fact, I remember when I dissolved my business, I sent out an email explaining it, and that was my first time of really letting the business community know my story and what I was starting and why. And the flood of emails that came back and the phone calls I received, I realized how much not only was I living in silence and hiding this deep, dark secret, but how many people I never, ever would have thought carried the same shame and fear, and what courage it took for them to pick up the phone and return their stories in exchange for the one that I had shared. And those that come in our doors, and like I said, that stay late and visit with me or send emails, that's really what inspires me and what gives me the courage and strength to keep moving forward. This is not a topic that people are excited about. Nobody wants to talk about it. Believe me, when we're out trying to get money to keep our doors open, crickets. and we've heard it over and over and over again. It's not a sexy topic. It isn't fun. There's so many feel-good opportunities out there to share your time, talent, and financial resources that why would anybody want to touch this topic when right now Life of Hope is really, as I'm understanding it, setting the pace for what comprehensive suicide prevention and filling those gaps looks like. Why would we want to put our money there? And why would we want to have somebody who's going to talk about suicide ideation and attempt come and be our keynote speaker? We can have somebody come in and talk about how they built a new art museum and show the pieces of art and everybody can ooh and ah. Why would we bring in this really sad, dark story? The truth of the reality, the truth of the matter is, people come into the Life of Hope office and they are shocked at how much fun and vibrance and color and joy. We'll be laughing and laughing, and all of a sudden I'll look at everybody and say, "What are you laughing about? We're supposed to be sad here. That's what this topic is." And we'll just laugh harder because we realize that's the joy in life. As a speaker, if those who have joined me and shared their time with me aren't laughing at various points and feeling that connection, then I need to really go back and reconnect with the purpose and reason why I'm there. And make it authentic, make it engaging, make it relatable, and bring a sense of joy and happiness. And so for those who don't want to start the conversation, who don't want to open up their pocketbook and make the difference, I just really hope that they'll take a closer look at the topic and what it really stands for, because I think it's a really big phrase that's out there about whose life matters. I think every life matters, and unfortunately there's just some of us out there that lose our way in understanding the value of our life. Instilling that value and that purpose, I can't imagine a greater gift that you could give to somebody than sharing your time, talent, and resources to make that possible. That's why I'm possible, right?
Absolutely. I love it. I have not paid Deeatra for any of these plugs, by the way. She's doing them willingly.
Disclaimer. Oh, I love this. Gosh, I was just thrilled and honored. I mean, what an incredible concept that we have 50 people from around our country that have lived 50 different lives that
around the world,
many of us don't know one another.
Mm-hmm. We actually have New Zealand, we have Canada, we have Australia, we have the U.S., we have...
I got to get on my world tour and go meet them.
Yeah, we have the Republic of Ireland. We have... Do we have England? Do we have Scotland? We might not have those, but we have at least 5 countries. So we have people around the world.
I am representing the great state of Wisconsin.
Okay, real quick, I have to just make this comment because you said in the beginning, so you live in Wisconsin. You're like, I escaped Idaho to go to Wisconsin. Like most people escape Idaho and go to Los Angeles or New York. You're like, I'm going to go somewhere really cold with a lot of cheese, and I'm going to escape Idaho to go to Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's a lovely state, by the way, but I never hear that.
No. So, and what's really funny is my hometown is on the exact same lateral line as the hometown that I'm in Wisconsin. So from Idaho to Wisconsin, you're right. I could have gone south, found, sunshine and all kinds of, American dream, and no, I went east. Yeah, I scratch my head sometimes too. Actually, I came out here with my first husband with the idea that any place would be a better start than staying in the past. And
as long as it's in a straight line. As long as it's in a straight line, that's all we can do. We're going to go somewhere, but it's got to be in a straight line.
And we arrived with a baby. Yeah, we had a baby on the way, $53 in our pockets, no jobs. I'll tell you this. If my children ever considered pulling a stunt like that, they would have mom to answer to. I don't know what we were thinking. We survived it, but goodness, there's a lot easier ways to be able to heal from the past than the path that we chose. But anyways, so I'm here in the state of Wisconsin. I fell in love with it. Our marriage didn't make it, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. So go pack, go eat some cheese. I'm not a bratwurst kind of girl. I'm not a fan of beer. Yeah, but hey, it is the home of Fonzie, and you can't go wrong with the Packers
and Manitowoc. Yeah, and there's Manitowoc, and there's Kenosha. I mean, my God, what giant cities.
Well, and I found out only after I was here for a number of years that my great grandmother, her family, and she was actually born in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And And I had never known that. And I can drive a half hour and be where my great-grandmother was born before she moved west. So
she went west in a straight line, and you went back east in a straight line.
And I had no idea I was even following her tracks. So.
All right, so Deeatra, since we're kind of having a little bit of a good time, not that we haven't the whole time, this is a little moment in the show. This is a quick fire round. This is just where we get to have a little fun. It's so people get to know a different side of you. We've talked a lot about life of hope and speaking and suicide and mental health and all topics I can talk about all day. So I'm going to ask you some questions. They're fun questions. There are no right or wrong answers. Away we go. Deeatra, what is your favorite word?
Without question, hope.
Duh. I knew you were going to say that.
Such a good word.
In the title of your foundation, my favorite word is of hope. Good. I'm a big fan. So, to that end, what's your least favorite word?
I really dislike the word no. Somebody tells me no, I can understand they said no, but what I hear is just not right now, give me more information.
Mm-hmm. We're living parallel lives. I hate the word no. No is like, are you sure it's not maybe? It's hard for me, and I've taken it to therapy. I'm getting better at it, but no is one of our no and hate. A few others. There's like 3 or 4 that are like our guests. No is big on the list. So if someone decided to make a movie of your life, who would play the title role?
It's funny. I was just saying yesterday that at some point I'm sure there'll be a Lifetime movie about my life, and then it occurred to me I'm going to actually have to be a Netflix series because there's so many different stories of my life. And I think one of the movies that I remember watching it years ago and going, I could be like her, was Erin Brockovich. So I would have to go with Julia Roberts because she did a great job in that role. I can't say it's my favorite movie ever, but I can say it's one of those movies that makes you feel like I'm possible. And I loved it. I loved it for that reason. So Julia Roberts,
story.
Julia
Roberts.
And she's kind of pretty too. So I could do that.
Yeah, a little more than kind of.
Hey, Julia, if you're listening right now,
Julia,
have your agent call my agent and let's get together and do lunch.
Hook your sister up to make it happen. And it's good. I'm glad you chose Julia Roberts and like either a Netflix series like Deeatra is the New Black or something. Because if you did Lifetime, there's only like 2 people that can that ever act on Lifetime movies. You got Jennifer Love Hewitt, and then she's like the queen of Lifetime movies. And then there's like a couple others that I'm kind of blanking on, but she's also not the worst person.
Maybe it's not Susan Lucci. I'm trying to think of one of the gals that looks like her. I think that Susan Lucci is the one with the soap operas that's been doing it for years.
Oh, yeah, she is.
But you're right. It's the same actresses. No, we need to have that person that already has the inspiration built into character. Yeah.
Agreed. All right, 2 more. Deeatra, who or what is your spirit animal?
That's got to be a dog. Okay, now let me tell you why. First of all, we have a Pomeranian, and she is our office mascot. But if we think about it, so the dog is man's best friend. I believe that the dog is woman's best friend as well. And couldn't we all just use a good friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone I meet, they don't know it yet, but they're already my friend. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
I'm kind of like, I'm kind of like that faithful dog.
Great analogy. I like that a lot. Spirit animal is a dog.
Dog.
D-Dog. That's your rapper name.
And I'm like the dog that had 9 lives. Sorry, cats, but I'm the bounce back queen, and so the dog that ends up in the pound 4 times and has 4 different homes, and that's like me. There's that many more people that I've been lucky enough to share my life with.
Outstanding. So, last one. Deeatra, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you as you enter or as you get kicked out?
Oh, that's too funny. I think I'd like for God to say you did good with all of your second chances, isn't it? Just tell me that I've done good with all my second chances. Tell me that he's glad that I stuck it out for the full experience.
Yeah. Maybe a little high five and a hug while you're at it. I think if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, I suck at betting, but if I was, I would definitely bet on that actually happening, because you have done an incredible job with your second and 12th chances. And I'm so glad you're here, because if you hadn't made the most of it, we wouldn't get to be friends and we wouldn't have this moment. And I'm grateful for it.
Right back at you.
So, Deeatra, thanks. Thank you. So that's the end of our quickfire round. What does the next 6 months to a year look like for you? Business, life, work, anything you want to share? What's the next 6 months to a year look like for you?
Personal life, we'll have the last of our 3 kids starting college. We will have our home remodel project done. And my husband and I are going to be starting the next chapter of our lives together as empty nesters, which is really kind of exciting. So that's fantastic. Of course, I always know how to get the kids to come back home. I just tell them that I've made a nice homemade Italian dinner, and they line up at the door. So that's good. As far as
I want that.
Well, you're invited. You're invited. Come on over. It's my grandmother's. Her recipes, and you don't get any better. So then I would say, as far as professionally, really focused with my Deeatra K speaking platform in getting my name out there and reaching a wider, broader audience. I've got 4 different speaker topics. Each one is different every time that I share it, because it's really about interacting with those who are generous enough to share their time with me and allow me to share my story with them. So just, reaching out into the community of mental wellness and suicide prevention and the business community that are looking for examples of strong leadership. And to me, leadership is in the overcoming of adversity, and I think there's a lot that can be learned from my story on how to achieve that, even in the corporate sector. So, within Life of Hope, we're going to continue to knock down walls. Doors are fine, but I want the walls coming down until the entire structure of shame and guilt and judgment and silence come crumbling. Until we treat suicide the way that we now treat individuals who have AIDS or individuals who have cancer. Challenges that individuals have faced in the past that would have been shunned and ostracized because of a lack of knowledge. Now we know. We can embrace them and we can rally for them and encourage them toward healing and hope and joy-filled lives. And I want that for the people who just don't quite understand yet that it's okay to not be okay, but that in that moment of not being okay, that they should do it in community, because that's where healing really begins. We're going to be pounding the pavement to get money coming in the door so that we can keep the doors open. We offer all of our programs for free, but we all know nothing comes for free. And so it takes the compassion, the love, the support, the financial contributions of listeners to this podcast, of the wider, broader community, to make what we do possible and to help us be able to spread Life of Hope into other communities. So, the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to continue to lay the foundation for that to happen and continue to encourage people far and wide to provide us the financial means to make it possible. So those are some of the bigger goals of what we're working on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I touch people's lives, and I don't know of anything in this world that could make my life more fulfilling than being able to do that.
Well, I see. Knowing you, I can see all of those things coming to fruition in one way, shape, or form. So that's incredibly exciting, and I'm excited for you.
I don't like the word no.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Kind of maybe as well.
Maybe it's getting closer.
It's getting closer. So if folks want to continue to follow you on your journey and learn more about maybe how they can help, contribute, donate, walk with you, book you, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you or connect with you? Best way, couple ways? How can they do that?
So Yeah, okay, so a couple of different ways depending upon which area of my life's passion you're most interested in learning about. Life of Hope, the website to learn about our programs is lifeofhopeproject.org, O-R-G. Lifeofhopeproject.org will actually take you to the home of everything Life of Hope related. You can also follow us on Facebook to learn more about different activities that are going on, a lot of inspirational, a lot of statistic, education-based information out there on Facebook. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, and we put out a biweekly, twice-a-month edition that we understand we get tons of feedback from on how much people appreciate it and that they're actually passing it on. So good stuff there. For the Deeatra K work that I do, I should spell my name because, you know what, my mom had a lot of fun in the early 70s playing around with the alphabet to come up with the name Deeatra. It's spelled D as in David, E as in Edward, E as in Edward, A as in Apple, T as in Tom, R as in Randy, A as in Apple. So Deeatra, D-E-E-A-T-R-A. And then K for the last name Kajfosz, but boy, that's a whole nother alphabet name. So just Deeatra, the letter
That's
K.
That's how you say it?
Kajfosz. I know.
I had no idea.
It's exactly like it's spelled. Come on. Good old Polish boy.
A lot of people throwing around consonants like it's nobody's business.
K's and J's, I tell you what, I make for a really good game of Scrabble. And if you want to buy a vowel, I've got lots of them to sell. So it's DeeatraK.com. And there's information in there about the I'm Possible Project Volume 2. There's information in there about the 4 different speaker topics and how to be able to get in contact with me. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me through that site as well. We've got a contact page. My personal cell phone number is listed on the website, the Deeatra K site. So there's just a lot of good information about my journey, what I'm doing, and then if you want to know a little bit more about what Life of Hope is doing, then you've got that as a resource too.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'm so glad that there's so many different ways to connect. And do that, folks. Check out what's going on in Deeatra's world and on the foundation side, on the speaker side. There's lots of good information there. Deeatra, thank you once again for coming on the show today. This is a real joy and a real treat. Oh,
my greatest gratitude to the experience of just knowing you and having the opportunity to now expand our mutual passion out to the masses. So we look forward to hearing from all of them, don't we?
Absolutely. 100%.
You've been listening to the I'm Possible Project Show with Joshua Rivedal and guest, Deeatra K. I love sharing stories and how to turn impossible into I'm Possible. If you want more inspirational stories, our second and third books are available right now. Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible, as well as Lemonade Stand. Both contain powerful stories of overcoming tremendous odds. When life gives you lemons, squeeze, add sugar, and pick up a copy of the I'm Possible Project. That's IAMPossibleProject.com/2/TWO or IAMPossibleProject.com/lemonade. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're more than a community. You're part of the I'm Possible family. Until next time, sending you lots of love.